What reached me for Christ, what reached me for the gospel, it was one solitary high school boy who refused to take no for an answer. In the Western culture, in the Western civilization, Christians basically hit one shot and done. You tell somebody about Jesus, if they reject you, bye. You have to understand, in our world, for a Muslim to come to faith in Jesus Christ, to leave Islam, you lose your culture, family, job, home, sometimes your life. And the average Muslim, it takes 7 years to come to faith in Jesus. For me, it was any number of years. But one boy, from the moment he started talking to me, would not leave me alone. It didn't matter how many times I said no. He invited me to events. He invited me to special all-night things. He invited me to concerts. I said no, 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 no. I did not want contact with the kafurim, with the infidel. Finally, my senior year in high school, to show him, I walked into this little church. So one solitary boy, one tiny little storefront church, one pastor who had maybe a 6th grade elementary school education. It was always the small, the isolated, the anonymous. And if you think about it, Christianity marches on the shoulders of anonymous people who have invested their lives. I mean, any person watching, if you do a detailed analysis of your life, most of the people who radically affected you were people who the world doesn't know their names. Their names aren't on the spines of books or on the sides of buildings. They're the anonymous. And it was an anonymous boy. It was an anonymous church. It was an anonymous pastor. And it was one little people who loved me to the cross. And this is important because everything I had ever learned about Christianity, I had learned from my imam, from my masjid, from my mosque, from my leadership. Every single one of them. And every caricature that I held was based on caricatures that other people had held. The meaner I was to them, or the more sarcastic I was, or caustic I was, the nicer they were to me. I sat by myself, boom, they all come sit around me. I'm churlish, and they just smile. I was amazed at the ability of the Christian to love me in spite of me. And this is important because it's unconditional. And when I finally afterwards asked them, why are you so nice to him? Why were you so... Well, I said, that's the way Jesus loved us. Romans 5:8, for God commended His love toward us that while we were still sinners, while we were still at war with Him, while we still hated Him, Christ died for us, the godly for the ungodly. That is a radical concept for somebody like me. He takes me to the pastor. The young man does. And the pastor says, what do you think about Jesus? And I said, in Isa. His name is Isa in Islam. We respect Isa. As a matter of fact, we named the 19th surah of the Quran after his mother, Surah Maryam. He said, you can't respect Jesus. It's something that I tell Muslims when they say, no, we hold him in high reverence and high respect. You cannot respect Jesus. Because Jesus declared himself to be God. Isa al-Messiah. Jesus said he was Messiah. And more than just Messiah to the Jew, but he came to die for the world. If Jesus said these things, he is not qualified to be a prophet in Islam. The people who claim to be God, and there's thousands of them throughout history that have claimed to be God, they are either diluted, or in the case of Jesus, he actually is who he says he is. But in either case, some man walking down the streets drinking alcohol who's talking to himself, who thinks he's God, does not deserve my respect. To summarize it, he said, you either revere him as God or reject him as a fraud, but you don't have the option of just respecting him. That door opened. He asked me this question. He said, Islam teaches that Jesus wasn't crucified. Yes, Surah 4, verse 157, Isa was not crucified, but somebody else in his place. He said, why would Jesus be indicted of a crime worthy of crucifixion to begin with? Was it trumped up charges? No. Was it blasphemy? Yes. What's blasphemy? In other words, he opened the door to me about crucifixion. That when Jesus died, his death had some meaning, some hope, In every debate that I've done, in every time I've debated Muslim, Sunni, Sufi, Alawite, Shia, every debate I've ever done, this question always comes up from the Muslim. What does one man's death have to do with me? But you see, in Islam, there is a measure of this. If I die to further Islam, I am helping my children, I am helping my family, I'm helping future generations. So my death does, in fact, resonate throughout Islam. The question I ask them is, what would Jesus' death resonate for you? In other words, if Jesus shed His blood, I don't have to. Jesus' blood shed, Jesus' death offers me the one thing that Islam cannot answer, and that is the screaming need for my assurance, the screaming need for forgiveness. And so Jesus Christ, according to the Bible, dies on the cross, buried, 3 days, resurrects, ascends into heaven's temple, presents His blood, and then He sits down. And so then I will ask the Muslim, why would Jesus sit down? Is He tired? And He sat down because He was done. Finished. Atonement has been offered. If I may say it this way, Jesus strapped Himself to a cross so that I wouldn't have to strap a bomb to myself. I lasted 4 days in that church. After so many years of struggling, I lasted 4 days. On the 4th day, I came forward. I told the pastor, Isa bin Allah, Jesus is the Son of God. I want to be saved. I want to be born again. Now, that's all preacher talk for simply saying that I wanted Jesus to forgive me of my sins. I accepted His sacrifice in my life. I accepted His bloodshed for me. I repented of my sin, turned my life over to Him. He is not just a messenger. He is Messiah. And He's not just the lover of my soul. He is now the Lord of my life. And in so doing, I learned that I live much more righteously when I'm not trying to earn His favor. I do so because I've already been receiving His favor. I do so because I love Him like a child to his father. I do things to love Him, not to earn His love. Up until the moment I became a Christian, everything I did was based on fear of the scales. Discovering that Jesus Christ forgiving me, cleansing me, saving me, had done this for me, I'm now confused. So do I not do good works? Often Muslims will point to hypocrites. And I tell Christians, I say, the worst Christian they know is the best Christian they understand. Because they always see the hypocrites. And I said, does that mean that I can go do what I want? That I can go live the way I want? Because now I don't have to earn His favor? And it's the exact opposite. I slowly had to learn that I do what I do, and I am what I am, and I read what I read, say what I say, not to be accepted, but because I am accepted. This change in my life, diet, this change of life, I pray more now than I did before I was a Muslim, when I was a Muslim, because I don't have to pray. God tells me I have access to the throne at any moment. It was said of one evangelist that he was not long without prayer, but not long in prayer. I don't have to go on for hours to prove something. I pray when I have a need. I pray that moment. I pray that second. I don't have to do wudu. I don't have to do cleansing. I don't have to put myself in a certain position or else He won't hear me. He hears. He loves. And because God is so intimate, the call for me to live a right life is now the love that a child has for his father. I want His acceptance. I know I have His love. Let me, if I may add one little point here. What is interesting is the liberation for so many Muslims who come to faith in Jesus, leave Islam, become a Christian, is that we don't know how to respond to unconditional love that way. We cry easily. We are so free to love Him back.